Hey guys, Wolvie here. This is the April calendar preview, part 1 of 2 for the City of Final Fantasy Opera Amiel Global. Now, I'm doing this a lot differently than before. I have promised that. So, there are going to be a few opinions here and there, but the usual disclaimer applies. Any opinion in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. So, what I'm going to be doing for part 2 is just to do my opinion on the stream itself. That sort of thing, so that way we get an idea what's really going on. So for part 1 here, I'm not going to throw out dates because, again, the stream has yet to happen. However, there are certain very noteworthy things going on that should be part of the April calendar. Now, the very first thing, which should be coming up later on this week for the global side, is Star-Banner 2.0. It features these 3 characters: Cloud for Final Fantasy VII, Squall for Final Fantasy VIII, and Lightning for the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. Now, these 3 all have their LD extension boards coming at the same time. Now, on JP, their HA armor also gets a plus variant at a later time. And again, it all comes at the same exact time. Just a little heads up. Now, with this particular Star-Banner 2.0, Squall gets not only his 8080 Awakening, he also gets a secondary rework. Now, in a nutshell, for the rework, it's not a whole lot going on, but the total number of uses of skill 1 and skill 2 are equal. It totals up to 9 if memory serves correctly. Now, the whole thing here with the LD extension board for Squall is that you do some stuff, because some exceptions, you can't be able to use it, so you do pull off something, then right afterwards it's the LD right after it, and then he starts off the quest with 1 stack of his particular buff. Now, the thing here is, as far as I know, Lightning is the only one of the 3 who is yet to get a secondary rework on the JPN. I have a feeling that if she does, it's probably going to become with the Burst Plus variant at some point in the future. Which is why, out of the 3, a lot of people may go with along the lines of she has the weakest of the 3 in the sense of the LD extension boards and anything related to that. So, the thing is, between the 3, Lightning, again, out of the 3, has, is perhaps quote-unquote the weakest because of, lack of a secondary rework, but I feel she's going to get one with the Burst Plus variant in the future for JP, and even later for Global. So, for the remainder of this video, I'm just going to be pausing here and there because I just want to know people see me going through this sort of thing. So, I'll be back. Now, like I said, regarding some of the stuff people you see here, I'm just going to reveal, what they're involved in, that sort of thing, because, like I said, the stream has yet to happen. I don't have the dates, so I just want to, let you guys know who's coming along in some way, that sort of thing, just to make it easy. Now, Rena for Final Fantasy 15, her full-blown event comes to Global for the first time, although for Global, it's a rerun, because she is the second Global First character, and she also had an event, a mini rerun of her event in the summertime, so this is another rerun of the event for Rena. For Rena at this time, for the full rerun, is she gets her 8080 Awakening, she gets all of her character enhancement boards, including the LD extension, so she doesn't have any tweaks going on, at all when she first debuted on JP, so it's we're kind of SOL. But what she does is really strong. She doesn't really need a rework as of yet, but you never know. And the whole thing with her LD, if memory serves me correctly, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong here, I do believe that with you pop off her LD, she gets a free skill use of skill 1, skill 2, or her additional ability afterwards. So please, somebody make sure that I'm correct on that one. I just don't want to be, saying it and then I'm spreading misinformation. So so I asked somebody, I am asking somebody, whoever watches this video, please check that out for me if you can, thanks. But yeah, she does have a full-blown, event rerun, and this includes the other difficulties. She does get her 8080 Awakening, her LD, and her LD extension board. So that's that on that. For the Lost chapters for the month of April, it's going to be none other than Eldenarsh from Final Fantasy XI alongside Trey from Final Fantasy Type 0. Now, these two will be getting their 8080 Awakenings alongside the LD and the LD extension board. Now, I'm not 100% sure anything else beyond that, but when it comes to Eldenarsh, I'll reveal like the burst, like the burst energy character, tied to him, as well as the burst energy character tied to Trey. So, stay tuned for that a little bit later. Emperor from Final Fantasy II, he gets his 8080 Awakening, he gets a bit of a rework, he also gets the LD extension board to his character enhancement boards alongside his burst weapon. Now, the thing with him is that he's one of those characters where you probably better have a whole lot of gems saved up, because when it came down to the his burst beyond JP, it was kind of tied up with sought after LDs, RNA being one of them, believe it or not. And with that, I'll reveal the second half of the burst weapon candidate, that is, which is none other than Yashtola rule Final Fantasy XIV. Well, thing is with Yashtola is like she kind of she's going to be in the same, or I would say the very similar predicament as characters like Emperor and Ultimecia. Because you're talking about characters where they get certain things like, at the gate, but when it comes back later, it comes with steep competition. Now, if you look at Ultimecia, that was what happened to her with her, when her LD first showed up per her Lost chapter. Meaning that people were like, okay, you can skip it, whatever. However, when Ultimecia's LD came back with her burst weapon, it came with competition in the format of Hope and Penelo's LD weapons. And I actually have all 3 LD weapons for the record. I'm still surprised I got Hope's LD on a freebie. That's all I'm saying on that part. Now, alongside Yashtola Rule's burst and LD weapons, she gets her 8080 Awakening alongside of her rework, which is actually quite cool when you really look at it, because you look at Paladin Cecil now, and I have to say this, but Paladin Cecil cannot be your do-all and be-all when it comes to healing, keeping people alive. He cannot be, because he is an elemental specialist. He is very heavily tied down to the holy element. Granted, Yashtola is a magic damage dealer. She is tied to the earth element via her skill 1, but not as tied down as Paladin Cecil. Now, I'm going to be checking something really quickly, so I'm going to do a quick pause on something, so I'll be right back. Aerith from Final Fantasy VII. She is going to be getting, or she should be getting, her 8080 Awakening alongside her LD, and I believe it's the LD extension to her character enhancement boards, alongside Kuja from Final Fantasy IX. So he's one of those where he gets his 8080 Awakening and the LD extension to his character enhancement boards. Although he does have his LD returning, which is pretty badass in my personal opinion, because it's one of those things is where, he actually needs it. He also needs his burst. But that's just my personal opinion. Sarah Farron from Final Fantasy XIII 2. Now, you see here, she is in the costume, her gear from Final Fantasy XIII. Now, here's the thing with her. There was a very big controversy when her LD first showed up on JP. Now, to this day, she still is without her secondary rework. And since she is a sequel protagonist, she is slated to get her burst as Burst Plus. Now, I did a little bit of homework, and I do know she has one other bow that's more powerful in the sense of, overall stats from the events of 13-2 than the Fairy Bow. So, a little FYI, a little spoiler in that regard. But anyway, with Sarah, once she comes out with her LD weapon debut and her 8080 Awakening, she also comes with her alternate costume. Now, her default in DFFOO is the 13-2 gear. Now, the alternate costume for DFFOO is that. But the thing here is the controversy with Sarah involves the fact that she came without a second rework. JP was given a lot of heat about this. And the thing is with Sarah, it's like, some people are saying, skip it till she gets her burst. But the problem comes along, and there's a few problems with that type of ideology to skip something like this. Now, one is that you can't assume somebody's going to be sticking around for when that comes. Because, again, she is without her burst weapon as of yet. We don't know if she's going to be getting it in JP next month. And the thing is, it's like, you also can't assume somebody's, like I said, you can't assume somebody's going to be sticking around. And then you can't assume, people are going to be like, okay, they're going to fix her, they're going to fix it. And we're talking close to a year later, there's still nothing for her. So it's one of those things, it's like, you can't assume people are going to be sticking around for the burst. Because it's like, some people may be leaving by that time. For whatever reason. And the thing is with Sarah, I kind of covered this not too long ago, is that I don't think she's mainly meant to be a damage dealer. That's not her main role. Because if you look at the Dissidia database website, her stat grid, the attack stat is not that high. She's kind of focused on certain other aspects. That's not the attack stat. That's the same thing with lightning. The Ferris sisters do not have a particularly high attack stat. And granted, you're going to need 3 out of 3 for Sarah's passes in order to make the most out of her. But it's in reality of all things, with Sarah, is she really meant to be an attacker? Is that her main role? And my answer to that is no. She's more or less offensive support, debuffer, than DPS unit. Celeste Share for Final Fantasy VI. This is the one where people who know me well, they know her as my waifu. She owns, during the month of April, one of the most anticipated reworks out there. She also comes with her alternate costume alongside the debut of her LD. Now, Celeste is one of those characters where you're really going to need her LD. Otherwise, she's going to be no use. But outside of that, her rework, and it's her second rework, it is among the most anticipated. Because what happens to her after the secondary rework, she kind of changes things around in the sense of who you can bring to the party in this or that situation. That's all I'm going to say on that regard. All in all, this is pretty much going to be pretty jam-packed month. The question comes down to how many free multi-pulls come along. And then before I end this video, there is maintenance coming along Wednesday morning from 8 to 10:30 a.m. UTC. That's close to the United Kingdom. And let me see if I can remember this correctly. It should be 3 to 5:30 in the morning, Central Daylight Time. I'm saying that correctly because here in the U.S., I just lost an hour, quote unquote. But that's that on that. But again, since do a quick recap of everything I've covered so far. I'm not giving out dates because I don't know them as of yet. But I just want to give you guys a general synopsis of who's getting what when, that sort of thing. And I do know that the Start Dash Banner 2.0, per the in-game news, it is coming later on this week. So, with that, to do the super quick recap, yeah, you see these 3 here. They are all getting their LD extension boards, LD extension to their character enhancement boards. Squall gets his 80/80 Awakening alongside his secondary rework. Again, the whole thing with Lightning, she is still without her secondary rework, so if she were to get one, it's probably going to be close to her burst weapon realization, which is a thing in JP right now, so that's on that. Regarding certain other things, Emperor and Yashtola are going to be your burst and LD characters for the month of April. Yashtola is going to be the debut of her LD alongside her burst weapon, and she is one of the very first later on to get the BT extension, or should I say realization. Now, with Emperor and Yashtola, they both get reworks. Emperor is a minor one. Yashtola is a secondary rework. Now, Celeste arguably is going to get the best rework because it's a major one. Alongside that, she gets her LD weapon debut alongside the LD extension to her character enhancement board. Now, Sarah, she gets her 8080 Awakening, the LD extension to her character enhancement board alongside her LD and the alternate costume, but no rework. There is a huge controversy about that. It's like something you might want to look up on your own time because it's too complicated for me to explain. Now, I do believe Aerith is slated to get her 8080 Awakening and as well as the LD and the LD extension board. It is quite anticipated in its own right. Now, Rena, she has a full-blown rerun coming to Global during the month of April, alongside the Lost Chapters for Elnarsh, as well as Trey. And before I really sign off, Emperor is the burst weapon synergy for Elnarsh, while Yashtola is the burst synergy for Trey. And if there's anything else to forget, I'll probably be covering it in a part 2. So I'm done with this video because I need to go to bed. With Wolfie here, signing off, I will catch you all on the flip side.